Hey everybody, how y'all doing? This is Friendly Neighborhood Therapist Friday for our Domestic Violence Week. Our theme this week is When Love Hurts. So I have a very special guest who was actually on our live show when we talked about domestic violence. So I brought her back because she is well versed, and I'm just going to let her introduce herself. And she's my Sora. So come on now, Sora.
Hello, y'all. My name is Nicosia Davis. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Alabama, state of North Carolina, soon to be South Carolina and Virginia. I currently work with domestic violence victims at a local nonprofit where I treat those who have left their abusers or in the process of leaving their abusers. Whereas domestic violence is so prevalent within our just nationwide community that it requires someone like myself. I am a trauma trained therapist, to be there to walk beside and in some cases help rescue those that are trying to get out. So any day of the week, I can be doing therapy with someone who is 2 days out of a domestically abusive relationship, or 2 years, or 20 years, because those wounds, especially the non-physical wounds, don't just heal overnight. So my good soror and the aunties brought me back to talk about this, as this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So if you're feeling like you want to support the cause, you can wear purple at any point in time. And we would love to see your faces and love to see the pictures to support those that have to stay silent for their safety.
Well, that's amazing. Listen, I ain't even got to wear purple. Hair purple.
Hair
I'm
purple.
all rocking hair purple. All right. So you said some really interesting things, even in the introduction, that got me like, I'm like, oh, I got questions about that. So specifically when you mentioned, people, whether they 2 days out, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, it's certain wounds that don't just heal like that. And people, when we talk about domestic violence, I think people, or intimate partner violence, people think specifically about the physical abuse. But the other types of abuse, what are the other types of abuse that people are working through?
So we have financial abuse, which literally just tackles the financial aspect of being involved in any type of intimate personal relationship. This is where they're going to control your access to money, control the money, control your paycheck, even if you're working. If you're a stay-at-home partner, they're going to control your access to that money if it's available to you at all. You have sexual abuse, which is exactly what it sounds like: making you have sex when you don't want to, forcing you to watch porn when you don't want to, doing things that violate your sexual boundaries. You also have spiritual abuse. They may force you to step away from the church or your religious practices, or they may force you to step into their religious practices. We recently, within the past 6 or 7 months, started discussing digital abuse, whereas they are involved in your social media. They're following you on social media to the point where they see everything you're involved in. They are demanding passwords to your emails, to your social media accounts, and as well as physical and emotional. That's the name calling, the disparaging comments, talking about your sexuality, talking about what you choose to do, who you choose to be with, including themselves. So domestic violence is not just physical at all.
Now I'm interested in that digital one. That's new. That's new. Digital violence. Do you think, my question, because I think this came up either in our trivia or it might have come up somewhere else, but do you think that people who share a Facebook page, like a couple and they share a Facebook page, do you think that that could be a step? Like, I know sometimes it's probably perfectly okay, but sometimes it could be a sign that this person is like, we have to be connected everywhere. I have to know everything.
That absolutely can be digital abuse, because it is not allowing you to have autonomy within a social media space, social media or internet space. So they want to know who you're talking to, who you're in contact with, who your social media contacts are, who your social media friends are, because that can also lead to another form of isolation.
Okay. Wow. All right, y'all. So see, you heard it. Sometimes it's okay if you got a combined page, but it could be a little iffy depending on how that relationship looks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another question that I had, because throughout the week we all put out different content each day. So Auntie Sugar and Auntie Keish both kind of highlighted the fact that domestic abuse doesn't just happen to women or those who identify as women. So in your years in this particular area, how often do you see male abuse victims?
So men are actually now stepping out and saying I am an abuse victim. However, it is still at a lower rate than women because domestic abuse looks extremely different, or intimate partner violence looks extremely different towards men than it does women. Yes, it's still all about control. However, because how people see men and identify men presenting people, they don't believe that men can be abused. So it's gonna look like how we normalize, because literally in American society we normalize abuse from a woman towards a man, down to the songs that we sing. Jasmine Sullivan told us to bust the windows out his car. Carrie Underwood told us to carve our name into his leather seats. Why? Because of something he did. However, nothing a person does makes them deserve how they are treated, as far as abuse, destruction of property, cussing them out, stalking them. Because girls, if you driving by that man's house to see if he got another chick at his house, guess what? That is stalker behavior.
Oh, okay now. And we know that happens. I think most of us know somebody who's done that or has been somebody who's
Mm-hmm.
done that. You hanging out in the parking lot waiting for him to come to see who he with, that's still a problem.
Uh-huh. Because you're trying to still control how he moves.
Wow. I know people gonna be like, and I'm not an abuser. It doesn't that you just have these
You have
tendencies that point to a problem.
mm-hmm.
And
Because
honestly, I always said if you got to stalk somebody, this is not the relationship for you. If you have
correct.
to do all that, the trust is not there.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, what people need to understand about abuse, it is literally about gaining and maintaining control of said person. So that's the entire goal of abusive behavior, is to gain and maintain control. And however it has to be done, they will be willing to do it.
Now, what's your take on what's the difference between, because this has come up quite a bit, it especially came up with the situation with Keke Palmer and what she wore to the Usher concert. What's your thoughts on, your partner saying, I don't want you to wear this, or I'm not comfortable with you wearing this, when you perfectly fine with it, or they met you and that's how you dress, and now they don't want you to dress that way. And some people feel like, well, that's a boundary. They don't want you to wear it, or that's a standard. How would you take that? Would that be something to kind of look out for, or is that just I'm just not comfortable with you wearing that?
Boundaries are for you, not necessarily for other people. You can tell me your boundary, right? That is what you will accept. However,
Mhm.
I don't have to choose to abide or respect said boundary, right? And at that point, you can make a decision on how we should proceed forward. And the one thing, and I remember talking about this amongst some other colleagues and friends, whereas when we talk about what they would prefer for you to wear, your preference doesn't necessarily mean it aligns with mine. So if I prefer to wear a sheer outfit in public, if that is not for you, we can talk about it. If it forces me to cover up to make you comfortable, at that point, we kind of moving into a gray area that is not healthy. Because at that point, what's going to be the next boundary that you're going to expect me to compromise that belongs to me in order for you to be okay? Because one of the hallmark red flags of an abuser's personality is blaming you for something and how they are going to respond to it. So where Keke Palmer's baby daddy had an issue with is he may have voiced it, but the minute she decided to go against his boundary, then he goes into a public forum in order to embarrass her and humiliate her in order for her to acquiesce and to change her behavior to make him comfortable. That's where stuff
Mm-hmm.
starts getting real murky and start going, ugh, girl. Mm.
I look at that as a form of control. Like, I need to control you now, which
Mm-hmm.
is also a sign of, possible abusive behavior.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about abusive behavior is we normalize it so much within our conversations about relationships, especially romantic relationships, that we don't see, the general population doesn't see a problem with it, in the sense of you're supposed to lose your autonomy to friends, to privacy, to having your own sense of self once you get into any type of serious relationship. You're supposed to change to be with your mate. Well, if you have to change your dress, if your dress is a form of self-expression, if you have to change that for their comfort, we're moving into some unhealthy spaces. If I have to give you my password as my spouse, my girlfriend, my husband, that means I don't have, my phone isn't a safe space for me. That's like saying, hey, if you write in a journal, I got to be able to read it whenever I want to.
Yes.
When you start losing your autonomy to be an individual, to compromise for someone else's comfort, is where it starts becoming, it's not an abusive relationship, but it makes abuse a little bit easier to happen.
A lot of times people say when you get in a relationship, you do change. You have to change. You have to compromise. There's a difference between compromising things that are not who I am versus who I am. That's different.
Very much so. If I
Right.
have to change if I have to change my spiritual practices in order to be with this man, because at that point, that's changing the very essence of who I am. I'm not changing my religious practices because it's something I want to do, or it's because of something I've newly found and I newly studied. It's because I'm doing it because he wants me to.
The things you did, and people say it all the time. Well, I did this for you. I made this change for you. That's
Mm-hmm.
already a problem. You
Mm-hmm.
making just for somebody, that's a problem.
We don't understand how we have normalized abusive language within our relationships. Of you're not supposed to have your own friends once we get married. We can only have the same married. We can only hang out with the same group of friends. Well, what happens when you're having a problem with me? Who do you talk to? Just like I no longer have anybody to talk to. Now I'm isolated, right? Or the one thing I tell, especially in this trend of women sharing their stories, is I moved across the country for him. I moved to where he was. I moved to his hometown. Girl, no, because that is isolation 101. Let me get you into my comfort zone. Because once you are here, you don't know anybody, you can't go anywhere.
The funny thing about that, as you said it, I was like, Lord, my husband, before we got married, he moved to my hometown. I was pregnant with our oldest daughter, and I said, I have to be with my mom and my grandma. He was like, well, if you taking my baby there, I'm going there. That was different. He made that choice. I didn't say you have to come.
You
I just
gave
said
him
I
that
have
choice.
to.
Right.
Right.
And there is the difference between how that could have been an abusive relationship and how that was a compromise, right? You said, I'm staying here. He said, okay, I'm coming there. You didn't say you have to come be here with me, in my space, in my environment, with my people. Because if you had said that, girl.
Yeah, if I had said that, that would have been like,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same. And you know what that speaks to also? Ultimatums. I don't think people realize how ultimatums can be
Mm-hmm.
abusive. Not meaning
Mm-hmm.
you are an abuser, but it goes into that vein. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
telling somebody, you don't do this, then I will do this. Or if you do this, then I will do this. Now make a choice. That's not a choice.
No,
That's not a choice.
no. That's putting me between the mountain and a rock. and the rock is just as big as the mountain. That's not a choice. That's forcing me to make a choice that you are comfortable with, not necessarily that I'm comfortable with. You're not necessarily giving me all the options. You're giving me the options that suit you.
Exactly that. Woo. So it's a lot. And you know what? I love that you got on the topic of what has become normalized. So many abusive behaviors, not necessarily saying people are abusive,
Correct.
but the behaviors that can lean into it or towards it have become so normal. Like, this is just how relationships work. And it's like, no, this is not how a healthy relationship works.
Not at all. Because abusers start off very innocent in their behavior. They're testing the boundaries of what they can get away with. What people don't realize is physical abuse don't happen out of the gate. They build up to it. One of the things I emphasize is be very mindful about what you hear about the person that you love. Because when they start you off with, oh, she's crazy or he's crazy, they laying the groundwork. They're curating their narrative in order for you to accept what is about to happen to you. Because how often will a woman hear something about the man that she is with, but, oh, my ex-wife crazy, my baby mama crazy, and then
It was them.
next thing you know, you hurt, and you like,
You,
hold up, homegirl wasn't as crazy as he told me she was.
Yeah, I always tell, especially like teenagers, young people, when I do talk to young people who are asking questions about dating, I'm like, pay attention to what other people say about this person and pay attention to what they say about people they've been with, because
Mm-hmm.
that tells you a lot. One thing I remember specifically about my husband was anybody else he dated, he never said anything bad about. It was
Mm-hmm.
never, he never said a bad word about it. It was always, it just didn't work out with us, but she was a cool person. She,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, never anything bad. And I was like, that's pretty good. Cause usually you hear, nah, that was her. I ain't do nothing wrong. And it's like, but did you not do anything? Like, she just was out there or
Right.
he just was out there. So you kind of got to pay attention to those little intricate details when
Very
people are
much so.
telling you.
Very much so.
What advice would you have for people who are watching someone they love in these situations?
So first off, I want people to understand it takes the average victim of abuse 7 times to leave and stay gone. So there are multiple reasons why people don't leave and stay gone. It's very easy for people to say leave, but where are they going? Right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's no shelters available, safe shelters available, are you going to let them stay with you for the first 7 days, 30 days, 6 months, 12 months? The shelter with my job had one client that was there for 14 months because she had not worked. She had nothing in her name in order for her to go get an apartment. She had no
Mm-hmm.
credit. Money that she was able to earn, she had to pay an attorney. So it's very easy to say leave, but what are you going to do to help? I always tell people, if they say they won't help, let them call the local DV agency or the National Domestic Violence Hotline from your phone. People are like, why your phone? Because their phone is being checked. Let them use your phone, or let them get on the computer and chat. If they are talking to you about leaving, let them send you emails with pictures and text messages. Because if their phone ever gets broken, you got that as a backup to go, hey, I sent it to my friend. She can print this stuff out, or she can send it to my attorney. I tell clients, even that come into my office, you don't necessarily want to put your family and your friends' safety at risk, but what they can do is hold your go bag. Hold that bag that has all of their documents, has all of their paperwork, has the medical records, has financial documents. It might even have some cash in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, get your friend a gift card, because once they gone, how they gonna eat? How they gonna put gas in their car? It might be something as small as just making sure they have hygiene products when they leave. Be ready to be a witness. So if your girlfriend is constantly telling you that her man is putting her head between the washer and dryer, and we ain't talking in a good way, be ready to say, hey, on this day, I recorded when she told me this, here you go. Because that's going to be the difference between her being able to get a protective order and not. If she says she wants to leave, be a part of the safety planning of, okay, he goes to work at 8:30. He works from 7:30 at night until 7 in the morning. I'll be here to pick you up at 10. Give a little cash for a bus ticket if she needs to go home. Sometimes I tell people it don't necessarily involve you physically getting involved. It may involve you putting out a little cash, maybe putting them up in a hotel room in a different city or a different part of the city. Why do I say you do it? Because it will be under your name. If they need a phone, go buy them a burner phone. They cost like maybe $50 at Walmart. You keep the burner phone because you don't want the burner phone to be found, but you want them to have access to it, right? It can be things down to just being just making sure they always got a pair of socks and some sneakers at your house to run.
So there are ways to help without you physically getting involved. There are several things you just mentioned that don't involve you putting yourself in harm's way, because we know just based off of, the way police talk about it, those are some of the most dangerous situations to step into if it's actively happening. Like if you put yourself in. But there are so many ways you just named to be of assistance when that person is ready, when that person needs something. And it's the understanding of, if on average it takes them 7 times, if you're going to stick it out, stick it out. Just know that on average, they're going to go back that many times. It might be different from person to person, but that's the average. So people get up in arms like, she keep going back. She keep going back. He keep going back. It's a process. This person has been worked on psychologically. They have financial issues that they can't overcome right away. So it's very hard to just leave. A lot of people who say that, I always say people who say that often have never been in this situation ever in life, because they say it out of a place of, this is what I would do. Ain't nobody doing that to me. You've not been psychologically programmed to deal with that.
Correct.
You don't know what that's like. People can alter how you think. Once
Correct.
they got you, fell in love, it's a little bit different now. Thank you for all that good information.
Anytime.
That was a lot. I hope people take a lot from that. And listen, y'all, if y'all have questions, y'all know y'all can send DMs to the Clinical Cookout, to our email, to our social media inboxes. Just let us know. This was really, really good. I'm really grateful that I was able to do this with you and get that wonderful information.
Anytime.
So, I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope y'all take something away, and just know there are ways to help. I think that's the most important thing I'm taking away is there are ways to help without you being put in danger. Thank you again, Soror, and y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of the day, and I will holler at y'all later.
Good night, y'all.